another DorkLair action figure review. Today I'm taking a look at the Poxxus action figure from the Poxxus Wave by Four Horsemen Studios. This figure was one that I ordered the most of from this wave. I think I ordered 3 total Poxxus, and I ordered 2 of a couple other figures, but Poxxus was the only one I ordered 3 of because I could tell right from the beginning that this figure was absolutely loaded. And while I am going to keep one as Poxxus himself, straight up like this on the shelf, I did want to have a few extras for customizing and popping and swapping and messing around with parts, because he's got all these cloth goods, he's got that new torso, he's got these new shoulder armors, like just so many cool, unique things about this figure that make it an excellent piece for customizing. And not only that, but it is a gorgeous figure on its own. I mean, just the amount of different textures going on with this figure, between the wings and the halo and the crazy ghoulish skin and flesh, and then you have the leathery bits of the torso and the armor bits and the cloth goods and the arrow and the bow and transparency and all these awesome just features visually. It is a spectacular figure, so let's get into this review. And before I get him out of this pose, which is, relatively time consuming for a figure like this, I mean, if you think about positioning things, you got to be very careful where things go, because the wings of the wings of the bow have to kind of weave in between the antlers on his head, or the insect leg crown on his head there. And then, just trying to get everything in place. So I thought I would just give you a close-up of that position. I do have him in, so there's the top view, right? And yeah, it was a bit of work to do this, obviously. There's so many little parts, and you want to be very, very careful, because all this stuff is so thin, and the connection points are very thin. So there's definitely the possibility for breakage when you're playing around with stuff that's that fine. So just be careful and take your time when you're trying to get him into a pose. But he does get into an excellent bow firing pose. It's not perfect. I do wish there was a little more bend in this elbow over here, just like a tiny bit more. And then obviously one of the hacks is you're going to have to lift the shoulder armor up, and it's not going to look quite natural. But when you have them down like this at this angle, it looks fine. And there, see, this fell off as I was just kind of talking, but when you look at it from this angle, it looks kind of weird. So just thought I would show that pose a little bit more. And here we have our handsome gentleman in a neutral pose, so that you can get a good look at that head sculpt with the really nicely painted, almost luminescent, color shifting insect leg crown, which looks really cool, just coming right out of his head. And then when you get into that head, you have that ghoulish flesh that's just falling apart in there, and his eyes are these bulbous whites, and his teeth painted really nicely. His beard is, the sculpture on that is crazy. Like, there's depth of it is just impressive. He does have this tie down here at the bottom. He's got a cloth goods collar this time, so it's almost like a scarf kind of situation, a little hipster Poxxus right there. And then on the back, you have this new backpack piece that's also got that shimmery insect paint job, and then this halo actually just sort of like rests right inside there. There's like a little set of indentations that kind of form the shape of a V down on that side. And so this kind of plugs right in there. You can kind of see it here if I do this, and then that plugs in like that. Just sort of a tension hold right there. And then you get the wings that are sort of a very natural kind of transparency here, and they fade. So great wings, but nothing new there, because we've definitely seen these wings with the insects, the Sphexians from Cosmic Legions. So unless you don't collect Cosmic Legions, these are probably not new to you. I will say this again as a reminder: if you don't have those Cosmic Legions figures, this piece of the wing is glued to this piece of the wing. They do not move separately, even though they are separate pieces. They don't articulate separately, so don't try to move them free of each other because they're stuck in that position. The articulation is the hinge that lets them sort of flap, and then you have the rotation there. And I do love the new torso front piece here that's got that sort of scalloped leather armor kind of pattern on there, which, you know, adds to the Poxxus look, but is also going to be very useful for a lot of other figures and part swapping. I know this is a piece that was painted blue and used on one of the skeletons in the upcoming the second Necronominus wave, the All-Star 6 wave, that appears there. And so, yeah, we're going to see that again for sure, probably more than once. And then the belt that comes over the top of the regular, typical Mythic Legions belt. So under here is the belt from, I believe, the Red Shield Soldier and a few other characters there. And then on top of it is a new belt that's got tons of stuff going on. It does have more of the insect legs. So if you're creeped out by insects, this guy's probably not a good option for you, but he's got some different pouches and baubles and possibly some potions and things. And he does have a belt buckle right there and some more pouches on this side and some more insect legs on this side. Like, the details are just crazy. So awesome. And he does have a 2-layered skirt underneath. So you have the 2-layered cloth goods skirt, both of them wired down the front. So like this top piece has a wire here, and then it has a wire on this side. This middle piece doesn't have a wire. I kind of wish it did, but the middle piece on the undercloth, that does have wires over here. And then this piece has some wires in there. It's all like tattered and it's got holes. And they do have wires on the back of each of them. And again, just huge props to C. Jessam and the excellent work they're doing. And also to the factory for being able to replicate these things in an excellent way. The legs are probably the one thing that there's not a lot to write home about. Just your standard Mythic Legions night legs that have been in circulation since the first wave, the Kickstarter wave. But they do have a nice little green accent to them, and it gives it that kind of pestilential feel that kind of matches the rest of the character. And then just coming back up, I think I forgot to take a good look at the shoulder armor, which again looks ravaged and tattered, and it does also have some of that green on there, so looking really nice. I mean, this guy is awesome. And Poxxus is a standard 1.0 build. It's really nothing new in terms of the structure of this figure, so I'm not going to do a ton of comparisons, but I'll do a few. Height-wise, he's about 6.5 inches to the top of the head, but over 8 inches to the top of the crown. Here he is next to some standard Legions figures. On the left is a 1.0 body that is Scapular the Crypt Breaker, and then on the right is the deluxe elf with a custom head sculpt from Corey Schwarzenhofer, the steam-powered mum. Next here he is with a couple wave mates. On the left is Samir Scrollwarder, on the right is Kalazir, and I do have reviews up for both of those figures. Here's a couple NECA figures. We have War Duke and Elkhorn from their D&D line. Here's a custom Masterverse He-Man in the new Icon Collection Dark Wolf. Here's a couple Storm Collectibles Golden Axe figures, Gilius the Dwarf in one of those pink skeletons. A couple Conans. On the left is the Super 7 movie Conan. On the right is the Mezco Frazetta Conan with some Kylab accessories. Finally, here's a look at Poxxus riding his steed Flogius, which is not part of this review, but I thought I would throw it in here just so you can get that look. I'll do a separate review for Flogius later. For accessories, he does have a pair of vertically hinged gripping hands, as well as a pair of horizontally hinged gripping hands. He's also got a pair of horizontally hinged expressive hands, which I really like for this character. I believe these are all the same hands that came with the Red Death. And then he has a pair of clawing hands, and those also have a horizontal hinge. And there's just a nice close-up. You can see his clawing fingernails there that are painted black, and the just gnarly flesh on those hands. And it just completely transforms it in this green as opposed to the red that the Red Death had. He does come with this very intricate bow that has a stretchy string that helps with posing and stuff. And you can just kind of see all the crazy details. Again, more insect legs for you insect leg lovers out there. Really cool looking piece right there. And when you're trying to have him pull the string, the clawing hand actually works really well in terms of like getting him to kind of make it look like he's pulling the bowstring. And if that weren't enough, it comes with the sort of powered up version of the bow that has insect wings coming off of it also in that transparent plastic. Definitely some very delicate pieces here. I would be careful messing around with this and just make sure you're not pushing or pressing any of these things together, because I could definitely see some snappage happening with these right here. And he does come with two kinds of arrows. So he comes with a translucent smaller arrow, and you can slide that into the smaller slots here, and then that'll, kind of pose like that. And then there's a close-up of that arrowhead, which is essentially a locust in flight. And if one locust wasn't enough, this has 6 on this head. So this arrow, it's like it's splitting off into 6 separate ones. And it's just like a little bit more gnarly. And then this one, you got to kind of slide under this hook, and you'll see there's 2 of those little pegs up top, and then it'll kind of go up in there. You got to play around with it a little bit, but eventually you can kind of get it to sit in the arrow. And the last piece that comes with the arrow is this nicely detailed long arrow quiver right here. And it does have a hook to go onto the belt. And his one other weapon is this knife in the sheath, which we've seen quite a bit in Mythic Legions. I do love this piece. It's just a nice, cool, ornate kind of dagger right here. Okay, getting into articulation, I recommend removing this piece because it's probably just going to fall off while you're messing around with it. Just take it off, pose it, and when you're done, put it back on, and then you'll be good to go. But yeah, the head is on a ball joint, so it can look up a bit. Not down too much, especially when you have this collar on. It kind of creates a little bit of, an obstacle there, but then it can cock side to side, and of course it can turn around and move around a decent amount. Pretty standard 1.0 Legions articulation. You do have a swivel and a hinge on the wings, which I'm actually going to remove right now so that we can see the rest of the articulation without, getting in the way. And these actually pop in and out pretty nicely on mine. They work really well. This is a backpack that you can just pop on. It uses the rectangular, back porthole there. Shoulder armor does rotate, so you can get it out of the way. And then there's a hinge at the shoulder that can bring his arm up to here. It can go a little further if you take the shoulder armor off, and then you can bring it down and it'll swing all the way around. It does have a single jointed elbow that has better range than usual. I wish it went a little bit more just for the bow posing. It can get into a good bow pose, but a little bit more would have just been perfect. Like the arms on the Red Death, they go way more because they don't have the forearm armor there. It just goes all the way up. But there is a swivel above, and then there's a twist at that forearm. There's a twist at the wrist, and there's a hinge. I got the vertical hinges on this one right now. And then at the waist, you do have a ball joint, so full range of motion there. It can go forward that far, back that far, and then side to side. Standard Mythic Legions legs, they can kick forward on the swivel and back quite a bit. They can twist at the top of the leg. You can go out into the splits very well. Single jointed knee comes up to about 90 degrees. There's a twist below the knee, and then you have a hinge and twist and rocker at the ankle. Getting into some part swaps, I wanted to try out his flesh on a different body, and interestingly, the forearms are 2.0. Those are Thwix forearms, so you're going to have to use 2.0 forearms if you're going to do any swapping with those arms. And then the torso, skirt, and loincloth are from the Praetorian Uwit figure. The legs are from Brother Mandibulus, making this not the least expensive of kit bashes out there, so not for the faint of heart. Next, we have just a straight up cloth swap, the lower cloth piece, like sort of the undercloth piece from Poxxus on the Ias Sepetian alien figure, and I think this looks fantastic. This is just a solid look, and it just kind of goes to show there's just a lot of little pieces from Poxxus. It's nice to have extra Poxxuses because you're going to have a lot of fun just mixing and matching stuff with various different figures. Next, I took the torso from Poxxus as well as the upper skirt piece and put it on the Shadow Orc Grunt, and then I gave him Poxxus's knife as well. This look is awesome. I think this is fantastic. This is a great way to give yourself like a Shadow Orc Grunt captain or something like that. And then lastly, I thought it would make somewhat of an Evil Knight out of the Valiant Knight. I did also use the cloth goods from the Father Christmas figure, but taking the bow, the hands, the belt, and the shoulder pauldrons from Poxxus, this kind of could be almost like some kind of acolyte or thrall to Poxxus. I think this is a very cool look. And something cool about the swaps I did here, I did 4 swaps, and actually all of this stuff is just from one Poxxus, and there's still some extra parts. So this thing is incredibly versatile when it comes to, parting out and popping and swapping and doing some different combinations. This is an absolutely fantastic figure. I do think it's currently my favorite of the 3 of the horsemen that have been released so far. So yeah, this is at the top of the list right now. We'll see what happens when Necronominus releases. Anyway, thanks for watching my video, and until next time, may the force be with you.